Hey everybody, welcome to... I don't know what this show is necessarily going to be. I don't want it to be a hate fest, but I did want it to be an extension on the ideas I brought up in my Pixar Eras video. So I don't know if you saw that video that came out this past Tuesday, but I do want to talk a little bit about that video first and foremost. But if you have never come here before on a Sunday for the live show, or if you're watching this on the replay, welcome to the 1901 live show. My name's Josh. If you like this kind of format or this idea, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, because we talk all things Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, pop culture, so much more. And I just really enjoy, coming on and talking with you guys. But I want to talk first and foremost about the Pixar eras in case you didn't see that video. So when we did the Disney eras video, we kind of already knew there'd been a lot of people who had broken up those guys into something, right? Like most people had at least broken it up into about 6 or 7 different eras, but I didn't know anybody who'd broken up the Pixar company into eras. And so with Disney, I tried to do a pre-Disney buyout, and then the second era being the buyout from Disney, and then the third era being kind of this space where we started to see a lot more sequels and kind of a not a downward spiral, but a downturn for Pixar animation. And so I wanted to bring up this idea of if Disney ruined Pixar, or is in this idea ruining Pixar. Let me explain this. So Disney's idea pre-buying them out was that they wanted Pixar to make their first few films, Toy Story, Bug's Life, The Incredibles, Finding Nemo, and Monsters Incorporated. I believe just those 5 films. And from that, Michael Eisner wanted them to make a lot of sequels. When they decided that they weren't going to do that, Disney was going to split off from Pixar and create their own sequels, much like they've done with the Cars films. Disney did the Planes films. Pixar wasn't really a part of that. Disney was the one that got Dane Cook and other people to do Planes. And so the idea is Disney asking Pixar to make these sequels, and if they're really making sequels with good stories, or are they just making sequels to keep franchises alive? Because there's toys that need to be sold, because there's theme park tickets that need to be sold, and they want to try and keep these characters in pop culture, which I understand. Not every movie is going to be a Toy Story, or not every movie is going to be Finding Nemo. And so you're kind of taking a gamble on what characters are going to stick around. Like A Bug's Land at California Adventure at Disneyland wasn't really anyone's favorite choice for like a land themed around a Pixar franchise. Like most people growing up these days aren't really watching a Bug's Life first and foremost. If I was going to sit down with a kid and show them one Pixar film, I can guarantee a lot of people would not say the first film they would show a kid is A Bug's Life. But what do you guys think? Because I want to kind of get your opinions in on this idea of if Disney and their idea of not just making animated films, but also needing to sell toys and merchandise, or needing to sell theme park tickets and all the synergistic kind of stuff. Is that what brought Pixar down slightly? I'm not saying that Pixar is in the dumps. I'm not saying that it's like the worst animation studio. I'm just saying that they had a really great streak of films, and then it seems like people don't necessarily take them as seriously as they used to. And maybe that's because Disney animation got much better, thanks to John Lasseter splitting his time between both. But now, now that he's out of the picture with Pete Docter in charge, the only sequel that we're going to see as of right now is Toy Story 4, and so is it, going back to its prime. Um, Shannon said too many sequels, but Coco and Inside Out have been exceptional. And I would agree, but Inside Out and Coco, as well as Finding Dory or Finding Nemo 2 and The Incredibles 2, are all made by the directors and writers that brought us some of the best Pixar films. You know, really, John Lasseter created, to me, an environment. Now, having seen him leave, created an environment that wasn't necessarily the best for creating amazing films. And I think maybe it's I'm not saying that he's a bad filmmaker. I'm just saying that I think he split his time to so many places, and the corporate world maybe got a hold of him, you know, too much, that the idea of, like, for example, making Cars 2 wasn't necessarily to make the best Cars movie they could make. I think Cars 3 was their redemption story in that, but Cars 2 was made simply because of toys, and, you know, later we would find out the theme park when they added Cars Land, you know, and they've talked about adding some sort of Cars attractions to other international parks. And that's huge. You know, when your top toy seller, like when your top toy sellers are the Toy Story toys and Cars toys, and you greenlight a Cars sequel, it would make sense that you're prioritizing toy sales over animation. And so, you know, but again, is that a bad thing? And maybe I want to hear this from you guys, because the more toys that are sold, you know, the more Cars 2 toys that are sold, the better budget that they'll have for the next film, or for any film coming up. You know, the more money that they have going into other things. So even though, you know, the entire goal of just selling toys isn't the greatest, maybe they're making one movie that sells toys only to come back and make the best movie they've ever made, all Inside Out. Not saying Inside Out's the best movie they ever made, but, like, it, you know, it coming out later, allowed, you know, Cars 2 allowed for Inside Out to be that good. And I don't know that for sure. I'm speculating. But what do you guys think of Disney and Pixar and all these other things? Like where do you see this going in the next few years? Do you see, now that John Lasseter is out, you know, Pete Docter has taken over, do you see things changing at all? Shannon said it'd be interesting to see what an original looks like now that John Lasseter is gone, and the controversy of him has died down. I'd also love for them to take another crack at a princess film. And here's an idea too. Now that we've got the streaming service, do they take something like The Good Dinosaur or like Brave, films that didn't necessarily do so well, but could translate to episodic television series? Do you do something like that instead? That is definitely possible. I think that seeing Brave as a TV series, to me, is absolutely what I want to see. Like, it is, you know, like, I think Merida is suited 100% for that kind of thing. I don't know, or you know, I mean, Toy Story, of course, because they've already done so many things like it, so that would make sense as well. But what do you guys think? What, you know, like, where do we go from here? So that would. I liked The Good Dinosaur, so I'd be game. Totally, yeah. And yeah, stop making cars and planes movies. 100% agree that they don't need to make them anymore. And I actually think that at this point, now that they've done like five between the cars and planes, that I think the two of them, or the two of those franchises, 5 altogether, have left a legacy enough to where they don't need to make anymore, and that the toys and the theme parks stand by themselves at this point, right? So they don't really need it. Like if they only did the first Cars film, maybe those characters would die off. But I feel like now they've got staying power and they're fine. TV series have different development teams and a smaller budget, so no. I mean, we have seen in the past few years, we've seen Tangled and Big Hero 6 getting their own development, and yes, the budgets would be smaller and they may not even be computer animated, but I could see like a two-dimensional Good Dinosaur or Brave, either one even, doing quite well. Although I don't know if they need that necessarily in Tangled. You know, although I could even see Merida showing up in the Tangled series. That's a possibility. Alex said a 2D Brave would be adorable, and she works on the 2D Tangled series, so I say you need to pitch this idea, get it out there for people. I'm interested to see where Pixar will go with all the new talent that they're bringing in. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm not... I didn't say this in my Pixar Eras video. However, the second generation of storytellers at Pixar really came to light when John Lasseter was then splitting his time between Disney and Pixar. So I don't know if they've had, a singular leader leading the way for anybody, in the kind of second generation of Pixar filmmakers. And so it'll be interesting that Pete Docter will be there every day overlooking all of these films. And I think that because of that, directors, writers, animators will benefit from that, and that Pixar will in turn be a better animation studio because of it, because they have one leader who is always there. John Lasseter sharing his time between Disney and Pixar, I think, allowed for a lot of people to lose focus, and that's when you have situations like The Good Dinosaur where they had to change things, midway through the film. What else is everyone thinking about all of this? Shannon is just throwing out random ideas about Merida being Rapunzel's mom. Great. Angie said, I didn't like The Good Dinosaur, but I appreciate the risk that they took. Though I feel like maybe if they hadn't had so many cooks in the kitchen, stayed true to the artist's vision, then maybe it would have been just as amazing as Coco. And I wonder if it happened because of Disney. Okay, yeah, and kind of here's the idea that, and sorry, my dog barked in the background, that, because of a lack of leadership, John Lasseter not being there all the time, that maybe the story got away from them, that the visionary kind of focus wasn't necessarily there, and there being too many cooks in the kitchen, like you said, all kind of wrap into one, and into why that film didn't make it as well as they wanted it to. Because The Good Dinosaur was never really made to be a huge merch seller, to be a theme park edition. Like, they weren't going to add like a giant dinosaur to the parks, like a giant, unless they wanted to change over Ellen's Universe of Energy to some kind of Good Dinosaur ride, or if they were going to add that to Animal Kingdom. But I don't see The Good Dinosaur fitting into Dino Land USA anytime soon. Animal Kingdom, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I want a sequel of Inside Out when the puberty button gets hit, maybe introduce some new emotions. I actually kind of think, personally, this is just on my personal feeling, the Inside Out is really set up to be like Toy Story, where you could have a lot of shorts coming out of Inside Out and creating 7-minute moments of Riley's life. I think that that's really interesting, and again, I think that that's also something that you could bring to the theme parks if, again, you keep the franchise going, maybe with shorts or something like that. I don't think Inside Out translates to television, so you would have to do either short cartoons or you would have to do a sequel in order to move that into the theme parks, probably, because like Inside Out is not a merchandise seller. It wasn't made to be that, and so I don't know, outside of bringing it to the theme parks, if they have interest in doing that at all. But I'd like that. I think out of everything that they did in the past few years, Inside Out is the most translatable to being a sequel, unless you want to do another Incredibles film, Incredibles 3, maybe not, I don't know. Oh, my dog says hi, everyone. Yeah, I don't know how many people watched the Eras video that happened, that I happened to put out earlier this week, but I'm wondering, and I'm curious, if everybody thinks that Pixar going into this new era, I kind of call it a new era, with Pete Docter in charge. Ed Catmull is, as announced just a few weeks ago, that he's stepping down. Do you guys think that Pixar is in a better place than it was a few years ago? Or do you think that they're going to have an uphill battle at this point? I'm curious, to know what you guys think on that one. And I'm sorry, I keep on going downward. I was sitting on my leg, and now my leg is asleep. So just letting everyone know that my leg is tingling and it hurts right now. But I'm gonna keep on trucking, folks. Jenny said Incredibles 3 I think could happen, but I hope they don't rehash things so much as they did in 2. Yeah, I liked The Incredibles 2. I liked it a lot. It wasn't necessary, but I did enjoy Incredibles 2. Peter asked, Josh, are you shrinking in the chair again? So when I got married, we went to Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar, and I sat in the chair that shrank slowly, and Peter was there, and he laughed at me. So there's that. That's why. Angie said earlier, I agree, I could see a series where Miguel and Dante go back and forth between worlds or something. I don't know if Coco translates outside, or I don't know, maybe it translates well. I don't know if I want to see Coco, more of it. I don't know if I want to see more of that world. I do love the Day of the Dead. I love Dia de los Muertos, but I don't know. I think Pixar is in a better place right now than it used to be. That's what Jenny said, and I agree. I think it's good to change things up, right? Like when Michael Eisner was put in charge with Frank Wells at the Walt Disney Company in the mid-'80s, everything seemed to be going great, and everything was going great, and things changed for the better. And then I feel like Michael Eisner ran out of ideas, and ran out of good ideas, and lost that kind of Walt Disney spirit to keep moving things forward and keep making things better, and instead got really corporate. And I kind of feel like John Lasseter, as much as I like John Lasseter as a storyteller, as what he brought to the table, I do feel like he got a little corporate, and I do feel like maybe he lost some of that Walt Disney-ishness that he had, in wanting to tell great stories and wanting to innovate, the world of animation. Hank Gavin Show said, I'm glad Cars series is over. That was the worst of them. Yes. Although I guess at any time they could say, we're starting Cars 4. Or I actually don't mind if they made Cars like the cartoons, like the short 7-minute cartoons. that's 100% fine. Those don't matter to me. If they say, hey, we're launching Cars 4, I think that then becomes a problem. So yeah, I agree. Jenny said, I liked Incredibles 2. My first thought after seeing the first one was, need sequel now. 2 was good, but not better than 1. Repeated a lot of plot points. Yeah, and I think that comes also from the amount of time that passed too, right? Like the amount of time that went between the first one and the second one. A lot of people came up with their own stories and their own ideas in that span of time, and that kind of changed things. The new Super Incredibles 2 annoy me. They're too millennial-ish. Yeah, but they didn't have a lot of screen time, you know, or enough screen time to really matter. Like, it's not like they pushed them to the forefront of the film. I'm actually glad that Mrs. Incredible, you know, Elastigirl gets most of the focus in this film. I kind of dug that, you know. Mr. Incredible gets the focus in the first one. She gets the focus in the second one. And you introduce these new supers, but not to like a point where like it really, really hurt them necessarily. So I was fine with it. You know, the same with like with almost any of the sequels. Well, especially like I really like Monsters U. I know Angie does too. It's not my favorite Pixar film, but I like that the focus was still on Mike and Sully. It was still focused on the characters that I really loved, and it introduced some characters that I fell in love with in the second film too. Like Art has to be one of the best characters in Monsters, in the Monsters Inc. series. Art is fantastic. I mean, Charlie Day is fantastic, really. Excuse me. Yeah, and I think the last few years, outside of people brought this up, you know, Inside Out and Coco were fantastic films. Outside of that, though, there's not really a lot of memorable stuff, to the point where like you would see a lot of merchandise. You know, like when Finding Dory came out, there was merchandise everywhere, but all of a sudden there's just like not a lot of Finding Dory stuff. You know, like Hank is a really amazing character. You had Becky, you had like the seals, you had the otters, and like now you can't find any of that stuff because there just wasn't a long-term appeal. The appeal is Dory and Nemo, and the seagulls. People still hang on to the seagulls. You know, Monsters U. I love Art. You can't find much of Art anywhere. I mean, any of the stuff from Monsters U. The only thing that you can find is like the hat from Monsters University, the MU hat. You know, you look at Cars 2, there's like, I mean, Mater, you could argue that he's a character from Cars 2, but you could argue he's a character from any of the Cars films. Anything specific to Cars 2, there's not a lot of merch for. There's not a lot of, you know, theme park stuff for. So, you know, no yawning. Sorry, I tried to make promises I wouldn't yawn. I don't know, outside, like, and even Coco really doesn't have a lot of merchandise. And it, in the long run, probably will not have a huge presence in the parks unless they change the Mexico Pavilion and Epcot. That's the only thing I can think of. Angie said, yeah, Art is the first character that her and I connected over. That's why we're in love. I used to have Baby Mike as my profile picture. That's true. Art is a very special character to us. Monsters U. Inside Out too. Both Coco and Inside Out, just like, I don't know if they have the staying power like Toys has, but I don't know if Disney wants them to have the staying power. You know, that's the thing too. Like, does Disney want to put out the merchandise for those films, or would they rather refocus up on Toy Story 4? You know, I think that's their main mission right now. Like, they'd rather sell you a brand new Buzz Lightyear than they would try and sell you a Miguel and Dante or any Inside Out stuff or whatever. And right now, they're trying to sell you all kinds of incredible stuff. It's like, here's all your incredible stuff, and then the next one will be Toy Story 4. Like, forget about Coco, forget about Inside Out, you know, which kind of stinks. I really like those films, and I'd like, to me, I'd rather have the focus on those films. Buzz Lightyear is already a toy that everyone wants. I don't need like a reason to have another Buzz Lightyear or a Bo Peep or what, you know, whatever. I saw a bunch of Incredibles 2 stuff on sale today. It looked like they aren't selling. And here's the thing too. They put out, I agree, it's not selling. They put out so much Incredibles 2 merchandise. It was almost to the point of like Frozen levels, where it was like they knew they had a hit and they just shoved all that stuff out. Like even the Edna Mode stuff. I love Edna Mode as a character, but there was far too much Edna Mode merchandise for what that character's screen time was in The Incredibles 2. And yet, you know, we're looking at, you know, the past few years, like Zootopia, I thought had a great premise for a lot of toys. You know, you have this whole world where you could literally like sell me the different suburbs of Zootopia, and you could sell me on all these different characters. They got me interested in so many different characters, and yet they didn't push a lot of merchandise for that at all. So weird. And yet they'll, you know, push The Incredibles 2 like crazy, and then Toy Story 4 will also probably be the same. So yeah, Toy Story is perfect for merchandise because they're literally already toys. Yeah, and that's totally true. Like I don't know if and maybe this is something I wish I knew somebody that was in the writing room at Disney or Pixar. Is that something they think about when they pitch a story? Are they already thinking about, is this able to be a toy or not from the get-go? You know, like when like if they pitch, I don't know, like Pixar is going to have this kind of dragony suburban film, you know, in the next few years. Do they sit down and think like, okay, what kind of toys can we pitch out of this? You know? So Josh, will we see more Pixar at the California resort in the future? I think so. Yeah, I mean, like, Inside Out is gonna have a toy. Like, here's the thing: the only reason Inside Out is getting a ride is because they already had a ride in A Bug's Land, and they're getting rid of A Bug's Land. They've already gotten rid of it, and they're moving that ride over. And instead of just like keeping Flicks Flyers as it was, they're retheming it to Inside Out, basically just to like maybe make people think that it's a brand new ride instead of just like an old ride that they painted. But I think in time we'll see more Pixar stuff at California Adventure, like on Pixar Pier, or even outside of that. It just depends on the theme and what they can fit into it. Zootopia, sorry, I'm just reading. Zootopia was released not too long ago. Yeah, but it wasn't released not that long ago, but like usually when a film comes out, like even if, and you know, this point got brought up, Zootopia was a risk, Incredibles isn't, therefore they can put that stuff out. But I do think, you know, when they do put out a movie and it's a risk, and within the first 3 or 4 months, you know, you could look at the box office numbers and say, oh, this is going really, really well. Let's put out some merchandise. It was like they just gave up on Zootopia from day one as far as merchandising stuff. But I digress. Like this is Zootopia isn't Pixar, but Pixar can be related to that. I have a feeling Disney will overcompensate with Frozen 2 toys. 100% Frozen 2 will have way too many toys. And yeah, the point, being that, again, it's not a risk. They know that Anna and Elsa are going to sell. They know that they can sell Olaf, Sven, all those different characters. There's going to be a lot of merchandise from that. There's going to be, I think, a continued presence at the theme parks from Frozen. I mean, they're already building Arendelle at Tokyo. I can see them possibly pushing that more in a revamp for, New Fantasyland at Walt Disney World. I can see them adding that in as well. Yeah. So, Angie says a limit on what you can buy, like 5 toys per person. We saw that already with the original Frozen. I'm sure that will happen. Jay said he was disappointed in The Incredibles 2. I'm not disappointed in The Incredibles 2. I didn't mind it. Again, it kind of did get brought up earlier. The gap between 1 and 2 was so long that I think so many people had come up with ideas on what they would like to see. So if they're going to do a sequel, and they need to shorten that gap between the first film and the second film, so that people aren't doing that. Anyways, Toy Story 4 coming out, I think will set the bar, right? It's the first film in the Pete Docter era, in the post John Lasseter, post Ed Catmull area. Even though they were involved, I feel like people are going to have eyes on Pixar and how they do kind of in this next generation, in this next era that I'm calling it, and going from there. I think Tangled was better than Frozen. I wish Tangled got more attention. I wish Tangled got more attention too. I don't, I think Pascal is like one of the cutest sidekick characters, but I don't know how many people are going to purchase a lizard over purchasing a reindeer and a snowman plush doll. Like that's the difference. I don't know. Like, I don't know about that. Jane says her main issue with Incredibles 2 was that a lot of plot threads were kind of abandoned halfway through. It wasn't a tightly knit together as the first one. I could see that. I could definitely agree with that. I think that it was a fun action film to turn your mind off to, right? The first film is kind of a thinker's film. The second one is not, but Cars 2 and Cars 3 are not really thinkers films. So Monsters University isn't really, a overly deep film. Yeah, it has a great, message, but it's more let's be honest, the sequels are more to make money. They're more to make toys and whatnot. Andrew said, I think it's important to keep Pixar and Disney animation as separate as possible. Pete Docter equals the right choice, as long as he doesn't also do Disney animation. Yeah, if they announce in 2 years that Pixar is doing so well and they're gonna push him into both roles, I agree. I think one of the biggest problems that Pixar created, I guess Disney buying Pixar too, is that their movies looked so good that everybody wanted to be Pixar. And so now all the movies look like Pixar movies. And you can't really differentiate the difference between a Pixar film and any other animation studio, especially Disney. That kind of big eye look is all over the place with both Disney and Pixar. You see it with Illumination, with the Grinch coming out now and whatnot. I would like to see Pixar almost go beyond what they've done, and I would love to see Disney move in a different direction, right? They created the Meander software. They've used it with Feast. They used it with Paperman. They should be moving toward using that with a full-length feature. That's kind of my thought on that. I like the scene where he gets asked to uncrush. Best scene in the whole movie. It's actually a pretty good scene. I agree. Your point is very ironic considering the message of the movie is not turning your brain off to consume. Or is it? It was the villain who said that. So I agree, though. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, they created a message that doesn't really fit because it's like, don't turn your brain off, but please don't think about these plot holes or these side characters that aren't as fleshed out as we'd like them to be, or as good as Frozone as a side character, you know? Maybe big eyes are what kills toys. It all makes sense now. The conspiracy is alive. It's true. But yeah, this is kind of the conversation I wanted to bring to the table. I wanted to bring this idea. I'm not bashing Disney. I'm not bashing Pixar. Their ideals are different, though. Pixar started as an animation company that wanted to make good animated films with a new technology. They wanted the stories to be long-lasting. And it seems like since Disney purchased them, the idea has shifted to, we need to sell toys. We need to, make the theme parks better. We need to do this or that. And so I would like to see Pixar move back into we make great stories with up to speed, up to date, ahead of the curve animated technology. That's kind of where they shined best, when they were doing Toy Story and Monsters Inc. and Finding Nemo and Up and WALL-E. Like, those are the movies that people, remember and think about when they think about Pixar. They don't think about Cars 2 or The Good Dinosaur. They don't think about any of the sequels beyond like the Toy Story sequels. So just my thoughts. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with me and hanging out in the live chat. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you've not already. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, for talking all things Disney and Pixar, all things Network 1901. Make sure to check in, next Sunday. We'll have another live show. We've got a video from Shannon coming up this week. And make sure to check out the podcast feed if you've not already. We do 3 podcasts a week. We've got the Podcast 1901 News Show on Monday. Modern Mouse Radio, this week we're going to be talking about Epcot and the possibilities of changes, good or bad, there. And right now on Fridays, Angie and Shannon are hosting a personalities podcast. And pretty soon, beginning of the year, we're going to be talking about The World That Never Was, returning for season 3. So check out the podcast if you have not. Thank you so much for checking out our videos, though. And in the meantime, keep on moving, people. See you guys later.